All right, so we're back this week with another video that has correct and well thought out opinions. Definitely no controversial takes on the other side of necrotic wake placements from our video last week. And this week, we have a far less controversial topic, class balance. We kind of talked about class balance a couple videos ago, but I think now we should go a little bit more in depth on a couple of different areas of class balance. Would you agree with that, Dratnos?
Yeah, so I guess let's just set the stage for people that maybe have missed some or all of what's happened in the last week, right?
Yeah.
So basically, Blizzard came out with a set of small to medium changes to a couple different specs.
Tanks mostly.
Which included, some tank buffs to Guardian, Vengeance, and also announced some Destro nerfs along with this as well. They then reverted this. They announced the Destro nerfs on a Friday, and they came back on the Monday and were like, all right, we will actually delay that until Season 4, which we have just learned is August the 2nd. So that's going to be for another month, basically, that these changes will not be implemented. And then they do plan to tune, they said, both Destro and Survival, along with potentially, I guess, others. They haven't announced what other stuff they're planning to do then, but hopefully some more sweeping balance changes as well. But at least Destro and Serv are on the chopping block for Season 4.
But I think that the low amount of tuning that they did to the tanks, which are clearly in dire need of some tuning, and then in addition to that, the absence of sweeping changes to Destro and Serv and them being less heavy-handed with Destro and Survival for basically the whole season left players thinking like, all right, why now? Why are you making these changes so late into the season? There was obviously a bunch of conflicting opinions onto like reasons that they shouldn't nerf Destro right now, whether that being like interest points of like the MDI, interest points of like I just geared up like I'm a Fodden reroller, I just geared up a Warlock and now you're nerfing it. You could have had the whole entire season, but you pick now. There's also interest points of like people who have already effectively locked up rank 1 Mythic Plus score spots, which that in my mind is a little bit less, but I do also understand
how... For me, that's the only argument that I actually like. The only argument that I would want to delay Destro Lock for is because nerfing Destro Lock by a substantial amount nerfs existing Mythic Plus groups.
Yes.
To the point that it will make keys that they've already timed harder again. And it means that like a lot of people will look at their IO or whatever and be like, okay, yeah, we can't beat that. We should just not play until next season or whatever, which...
We have some great data here, by the way.
Yeah.
20.
Yeah.
25.
I personally I think that they should tune, like, even if MDI's in 2 weeks or whatever, just tune the game, never worry about that. And
yeah, sure.
I also think that the argument of like I'm a Fodden reroller, they shouldn't tune me, also is dumb, because like if you're a Fodden reroller, you're literally signing up for this, right? You're signing up to be rerolling as balance changes. But I do actually think that the argument that like, hey, my existing Mythic Plus team has timed all the 22s and it was hard, and now they are going to effectively nerf our group's damage by 10%. That, like, I think that if they really wanted to push this Destro Lock change right now, they probably should do like a compensating nerf to either like M plus by half a key level or something like that.
Oh my god!
Okay. Some kind of change like that to make it so that there aren't people that have keys they've timed before that they can't time again. And because at this point we're all so close to gear cap that. Or not all, but like there are players in groups that are close to either gear cap or their gear cap, right? The best gear their character is going to have.
Sure.
Obviously, like the people who aren't killing the certain bosses, but they're probably not gonna, right? And they're not going to get that better gear this season.
Yeah. There was a big dissenting opinion where it was just due to the nerfs, anyways, and kind of what you were saying. It's like Guilty, who writes articles for Wowhead, he writes the Feral Guide. It said, now's a good time. The best time was at the start of the season. I don't think that anybody disagrees with this. The second best time is right now, and that's actually a very strong dissenting opinion. Is like they should be, even if they messed up the balance for the whole entire season, they should be looking to tune the game almost as they are personally ready.
But yeah, so I think almost everybody agrees that like this is sometimes you'll have people like kind of arguing past each other, and like everybody agrees that they should have done something about this 2 months ago. They should have done something about this a month ago, and they should be tuning more frequently. Yes, everybody's on the same page about that.
Okay, is that I don't even know if that's necessarily true. I don't even think that everybody's on the same page of like they should be tuning
At least like all of the dissenting opinion people that are quote tweeted in this article all have that opinion.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I think that we, the reason we're making this video, and the reason something that I actually really want to talk about, is like Blizzard tuning philosophies and goals, because I feel like there are a lot of them, and people do end up talking past one another whenever they're talking about tuning philosophies and goals, and the community at large and Blizzard themselves have very different goals for tuning. And then I have a couple that stick out to me. Do you just want me to start, or do you want to take some of them first?
I guess one thing that I always hear is like, anything is viable. If you're good at something, you should just play that.
Okay.
And don't worry so much about what's meta or not. And I actually think that should be the goal for Blizzard, is to have that statement be true. And this season, that statement was not true due to the fact that Destro and Serve were that much better. But some seasons that is true, and that should be their balance goal should be, let's make it so that those people are right. And this season, those people were very wrong. But obviously, like, that would be a good thing if it was true.
So the first one I have is specs are so close that the meta is meaningless, and I think that's what.
I don't think meaningless. I think the meta should be a cool thing for
people
pushing high, and people that are willing to bottom reroll, and MDI competitors and cryptic hero pushers. Like, those people should be able to get a little edge if they want to by making an optimized comp and changing a little from season to season. But your feral main or your marksmanship main or whatever should be able to main that. And if they like M+, and if they play a lot of M+, they should be able to do high keys on that every season, and not be like balance druids this season that are just re-rolling or not playing the game, right?
We don't need to talk about those people. Those people are coming back later. Next expansion. The next one I have is I can clear the raid with any composition, which I feel like this one is more raid focused than Mythic Plus focused, because at some point you're always going to run into these issues in dungeons where you're going to hit a wall. For raid, very infrequently outside of like Race to World First are you going to necessarily hit a wall. Where raid compositions, they're a lot more like, 10 slots are mandatory, or maybe like best case scenario 8 slots are mandatory, just our buffs are mandatory. But more often than not, you can clear the raid with reasonably any composition. And this is definitely a balance philosophy that is taken into account heavily by some people. The next one I have up is the one that I'm pretty sure Blizzard is on. And it's, I have a compelling reason to bring any spec to raid/Mythic Plus. And this is the one that I think Blizzard is on. And I think that this one is contentious for the community, because the community is definitely more throughput focused, especially for DPS. Because look at some specs, like where Balance Druid are right now, and they haven't gotten a buff for 3 or 4 patches. In addition to that, like Destro Warlock, Survival Hunter, they also very infrequently nerf the top performing stuff by large enough margins, because more often than not, you're having compelling reasons to bring any spec to raid in Mythic Plus. And that's also why they create these class buffs, is how I also kind of feel about this. I see you're looking like you don't necessarily agree with this.
Well, I do think that there are some specs that you can just kind of look at and be like, well, why didn't this spec ever get a compelling reason to be like Mistweaver Monk, right? It's like, why do we not have a compelling reason?
There is a compelling reason. I guess
you'd argue, it's Mystic Touch.
It's Mystic Touch, yeah. There is a compelling reason. It is Mystic Touch, right?
I mean, it's just like okay, if they could make it so that every spec had an actually compelling reason to bring, and not just like something they could point to and be like, look, here's the reason that this thing should be brought, then I could be down for this. But I think that this is an extremely failed policy if it is the actual policy they're using, yeah.
It does seem like it's the actual policy. Whether it's a good one or not is definitely... I don't know if I agree with it, but I definitely do think it is a policy. A couple other ones is just like the top to bottom gap is small enough where I don't feel like a burden playing any specific spec. That's one that, like, if you're on the bottom, Guardian Druid. Oh my god, dude, look at this. Guardian Druid and Avenged Demon Hunter damage in raid in particular. Oh my anemic.
Yeah, I mean, tank damage, we're looking at, 4,000 DPS here between the top and the bottom ones on that's Skolex and Rygalon. Yeah, it's not great. We're going to say it's not great.
It's almost 50% more.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is true that there should be work on making sure that gap is always not like this one is a bit too big for sure for the tanks, yeah. And then I mean, they picked the right two to buff.
The last two are that some people have are the best spec isn't so far ahead that it's mandatory, while the worst spec isn't so far behind that it's dead.
Yeah,
And so that's
that,
talking about like bands of tuning, which I feel like you and I talk about a lot. Is like
yeah,
what is the top to bottom gap really looking like? Because that's going to also kind of do this
that
thing
all
where
ties back in, right, with like
yeah,
the part about like play whatever you want and play whatever you're good at, and that should be more important than like a small meta change unless you're at the very top tier of the game. Like that is true if and only if the gap between the best and the worst is within a, it doesn't have to be that close, but it has to be closer than the difference between Destro and Balance this tier.
yeah.
In
So
M plus for the record, obviously in Raid, Balance, despite its low damage, was enough utility that
oh wow,
it was very good.
yeah, almost like it has a reason to be broad even though it sucks.
Yeah,
So now
that does kind of work in Raid.
So now we have a question of like, what should Blizzard be doing with their tuning? Because I feel like they got, even with the dissenting opinions, it's just like, okay, they should have nerfed this forever ago. Like Guilty's opinion is literally they should have nerfed this forever ago, but now is I guess a fine time to nerf it. It may as well, because I feel like nobody's happy with Blizzard's tuning right now, and we've even had tweets talking about like class tuning being the most like the quintessential issue that Blizzard needs to focus going into 10.0. I don't know if I necessarily agree with class balance being the biggest issue, although it is something that is on a lot of players' minds. What do you initially think that Blizzard should be looking to do with their class balance and tuning philosophies?
Yeah, I think tuning more often.
Okay.
I think that there should be. I think the raid tuning was pretty good at the start of this tier. I think they came in and did some reasonably good things there. They buffed some pretty good underperformers, especially in the first month of the Mythic Raid being open.
Yeah.
And then they kind of came in and they were like, "Oh, Destro's a little too good in M+. Let's nerf it by 0.2%. All right, and let's leave the metagame untouched for the next 3 months." And that was a horrific decision for what would have been, I think, probably the best M+ season ever based off the strength of the seasonal affix, had they not had the meta be so unbelievably bad.
I think we're in a weird spot where it's like Blizzard is doing this thing where they're I want to say like half in, but like they're doing almost like half changes. So first off, whenever they're doing these class tuning, they're not hitting necessarily all the specs that need a decent amount of class tuning. And in addition to that,
I think tuning of this size and tuning so that like you're nerfing the best spec and it's still the best spec, but you're just nerfing it down so it's not the best by that much. Like I think these sorts of light touches to small subsets of specs and to small subsets of kits, I think that is a good way to do it if you are willing to tune more frequently than once every 3 months. If you're not willing to tune more frequently than once every 3 months, I think you do probably need to make sure that you at least get like all of the egregious outliers every time you do a tuning pass, and you don't hit like Destro but not serve on something like that.
And that's why I think that like either there needs to be some consistency. For the longest time, Blizzard, what they actually did was they did one tuning pass after Heroic Week, and that was the tuning that you had for the whole entire remainder of the season. I didn't love it, but it was consistent, right? And it was consistent for a very long time. And then as gaming has evolved over time, Blizzard has taken a more aggressive approach with their tuning, kind of as other developers and other titles have also been taking more aggressive tuning passes and try to let their game be a little bit more balanced. I don't think that perfect balance is something that should be achieved or should be strived to be achieved, but I think that stuff being imbalanced makes the game fun. But I do think that like Blizzard doing this thing where they're hitting like half the specs, like you alluded to, is not great because you don't really know. Okay, is Blood Death Knight actually just going to get shot, or is Guardian Druid going to be the one that gets shot, and Blood Death Knight's going to get their change reverted on the final hour right before it goes live? And you never really know. And I think that the inconsistency is the thing that hurts them the most. And something they could do, like you said, and something that I would like to see moving forward is more frequent tuning. And because it allows them outs if they accidentally mess stuff up, it allows them to come back.
Like, I think that, the fact that, like, hey, we're nerfing Guardian and we're nerfing Blood this season. Oh, Blood is still the best tank. Oh, Guardian is now the worst tank. Like, that is not inherently a bad thing to have happen. The problem is Guardian is now the worst tank by 40%, right? that is the line that is our problem here. Like, if Guardian is just the worst tank, but it's still fine, we have no problem with this at all. Like that, there's always going to be a worst tank. That's not a big deal. It can still be valuable and worth bringing and have cool stuff and have awesome points for skill expression and skilled Guardian Druids. And that remains possible, but you gotta either make sure that the nerf is is well sized, or be willing to come back in 2 weeks when it becomes clear that it wasn't, which I think is a much easier way to do it. I think it's much easier to be like, oh, we nerfed Guardian too hard and then fix it, rather than like never missing in the first place. That's really hard, I think.
And this is what a lot of people juxtapose this to like League of Legends balance tuning. I think is the one that people normally point to as like something that they want, where it's consistent patches every 2 weeks. There's going to be some tuning, whether it be light or medium tuning, and then every mid-season to like seasonal change. So it would be like our major like 0.5 or 0.0 patches. There can be massive shifts in things. There's going to be like new tier sets added. Of course, there can be absolutely like massive meta shifting changes. Whereas in between these patches, you should be trying to get, at least from the player perspective, the band close enough to where you don't feel like you are playing a burden spec or like something is 20% ahead, like Destro and Servo right now, where it's just like the unplayable to play anything
people
else.
That don't enjoy rerolling shouldn't feel a strong pressure to do it, either reroll onto something like Destro or off of something like Balance. Like those sorts of things are, I think, pressures that were felt far too low down the like the try-hard scale this season.
So overall, basically, it's just like more frequent tuning, I think, would help alleviate this. At least some level of consistency. Would you be okay if they went back to the old philosophy where it's like one heroic week tuning, they leave it for the whole entire patch, or is that something that you would not be okay with?
I think they got to be willing to come in, and ambulance the game as needed. I think this is better than the one tuning pass in heroic week, even if it's not perfect. It's like making it so, like a band-aid's better than nothing.
Yeah, dude, for a long time that's how it was too.
Yeah,
it's just they just leave everything. You're like, oh, okay, well, they didn't know that this was broken, but I'm down to play it. All right. I'm sure that we definitely don't have any controversial opinions this week, and we won't get any flack in the comment section again. Leave your thoughts down below. I'm sure you will have well articulated arguments as to why we're dumb.
Let us know how the elitists and or the casuals are ruining the game and are directly controlling the Blizzard devs and forcing them to do all of these changes.
If you've ever read a story about Goldilocks, that is me.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the best situation. Either, what are you say?
Right in that one, everybody more on one side is too try hard, everybody on the other side too casual, right? Yep.
All right. Then we'll be back next week with another video. We'll see you guys later. Goodbye.